Joining me now is Sky News contributor Kosha Gada. Let's start with the Olympics. Australia's female boxing captain, Caitlin Parker, has hit out at the Olympics approval of two boxers who failed gender eligibility tests, calling the decision incredibly dangerous. Two boxers in the female category previously failed gender tests set by the International Boxing Association, who claimed the boxers' chromosome tests came back as XY instead of XX, that's female, XX. Parker joins the growing chorus of female boxers slamming the Olympics decision to allow these two boxers to compete. Gold medalist American boxer Clarissa Shields tweeted, "So they got men fighting against women in the Olympics. I wouldn't have stood for no stuff like that. That is so heartbreaking to the women who have to have their dreams ruined by a man. Sad." And you can figure out the rest there. It certainly is sad. It's outrageous. I'm going to be talking about this later with a women's rights campaigner who's got some strong thoughts, but just the optics of having a man beating up a woman in a boxing competition and possibly being awarded with a medal for it.
It's absurd on every level. The optics, the reality. We've had some cases. There was a volleyball player in a high school in the U.S. who got seriously injured because a biological male was on the other side spiking the ball. Multiply that by 100, and that's what can happen with boxing. It's really important to demystify the language, as you did there too, because they try to say that they failed the gender eligibility test. No, if they have an XX versus an XY chromosome, that's what this is about. That's very clarifying. And sadly, I think the only thing it's going to take, Rita, for this to change is something really drastic, because drastic times call for drastic measures. Either somebody's going to get really injured, which I hate to say, or it has to be really high profile, high visible protests beyond the tweets and the statements, which are great, good for them, Parker and then the American, but imagine if all the boxers or all the female athletes just completely boycotted the Olympics because of this, that would get the world's attention.
You know what? At the end of the day, I think that is going to be the only way it stops. If the women say in unison, not just one or two of them taking one for the team, in unison say, no, we're not doing this. We're not getting in a ring with a bloke. That's not fair. That's why we've got men and female categories for a reason. Now, let's talk about the US election. Trump supporters have released another parody advert for the Kamala Harris campaign. Have a look.
Look, I get it. I'm unlikable. I'm inauthentic. I say crazy shit.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. When we talk about the children of the community, they are the children of the community. You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
And yes, okay, I was the border czar. And so even though I might have been a bad vice president, what I do have is ambition. You would not believe what I would do for this country.
Mixture of AI, comedy, and most of the clips that are actually real. That's really Kamala saying some of those ridiculous things in her speeches. But humour, memes, videos like that, they're a big feature of this election campaign, and they really seem to speak to people who don't consume media as we used to. They're getting their media from new outlets, from social media, from podcasts, from all sorts of places.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think these videos and parody videos are worth 1,000,000. They stick, people remember them. Interlacing news with comedy isn't new, like Jon Stewart and that whole genre used to do that. This just does it better, faster, real time. On a serious note, as video editing technology and AI continues to grow, there might be some legislative issues that come in. I know Governor Gavin Newsom is challenging the idea.
Well, these are just ones, fans. These aren't official campaign ads. So these are just people on
And as long as it's disclaimed, which it is at the end, it's fine. It's not like you're misleading the person. And, they're memorable. And as you said, in her case, I would say 80% of it is real and 20% of it is added.
Well, talking about new ways of consuming news, podcast giant Joe Rogan, the most listened to podcast in the world, he's asking some serious questions about how Kamala Harris went from being the most unpopular vice president in history to now being some sort of a American hero.
So everybody forever was like, Kamala Harris is the worst vice president. She's the least popular vice president of all time. And then in a moment in time, all of a sudden she's our solution. She's our hero. Everybody's with her. all these social media posts about her. Try Googling a negative story on her. You won't find one.
Now, that is a key point there. Google and Meta, that's Facebook, Instagram, are certainly going out of their way to fortify another election. It's something that is being noticed by more and more Americans, including people, big wigs in Silicon Valley like Elon Musk. That is a concern because Google's power in particular is enormous. They've got a virtual monopoly. That's how we find information. And there are so many examples of what people doing a Google search in case, for example, Donald Trump rally, and all the top results are about Kamala Harris. And trying to get negative stories, trying to find old stories on Kamala is becoming increasingly difficult because the first page is just populated by what looks like propaganda pieces.
Very true. You know, we were talking just a moment ago about AI and all of that outpacing the legislative frameworks. The biggest example of that is Google, most powerful company ever created in human history in terms of its market cap, and the product they sell is information flow. So it's extra, doubly important. I think Trump's assassination attempt, that was big news last week, is now hard to find, or you're searching for his rallies and hers come up. It's a big deal.
Facebook, Meta, marked that iconic image of him putting his fist up and that fight motion with the American flag above his head. They said that was fake, and then they came out and apologised. But I think they had to apologise because they got caught,
right? And
there was a backlash.
And they do it 7 days later, so the damage in those 7 days is irreversible to an extent because a lot of people are influenced by this. So it's a huge issue. I think there's a Joe Rogan-sized hole in the facade. There's an X and Elon Musk-sized hole in the facade. So those few things are kind of poking at it. Thankfully, otherwise we can only imagine without those platforms how powerful it would be. But yeah, it's a big problem, and I think Kamala is a case in point of somebody who was on record very, very unpopular, as evidenced by her poll results in the primaries in her own election in San Francisco as the DA, versus how she is now. The polling, which is tightening, says it all.
Well, I'm not surprised it's tightening because we still have a large portion of the population who do consume media through to those traditional methods, and it's just been a Kamala honeymoon unlike anything we've seen. It's been incredible to witness. They're not even subtle about it. I thought there'd be a bit more subtlety, but they've surprised me with that.